63 Nova Spec build. It's Friday, end of the day. I apologize ahead of time if I stumble, fumble, mumble, any of that stuff. It's been a long day. Meetings and phone calls and emails and all that cool stuff that, man, I never signed up for that when I decided to be a professional hot rod builder. But here we are. But this is what makes it all worthwhile, is getting behind the wheel of a badass car like this. Every once in a while, we get the chance to go out in some rippers. And this is exactly that. 1963 Nova, built for a repeat customer. Drag racer dude from down south, did a Survivor Camaro for him, loved the Survivor program, drives the wheels off of it, and this is number 2. So I think he learned a little bit on round 1, and on round 2, we turned it up a notch. '63 Nova Spec chassis. This is the second Nova that we've built on our Spec chassis platform. Relatively new offering, very cool chassis setup. I'd say this one kind of hit as, I don't know, I just say we keep getting better. I don't want to sound like I'm bragging. It's not me that's getting better. It's the engineering team, it's the Roadster Shop team, it's the entire operation. So as we learn more and more about these cars, about the chassis, about the customers, we're integrating more and more features into them that just help speed the build process along, make it easier on the end-use customer. And these Novas, they're a great example of that. I always like these chassis when you're building them for something that you really didn't think was possible. So these Novas, being a subframe car, they've got just those little stick straight rails up front with 4 bolts on each side that holds the factory subframe on, tied into the factory kind of aprons, inner fenders, whatever you call them up there. What we did is we got rid of those, and then we turned this into a full frame car with very little modifications. The Nova wasn't super friendly for packaging everything without being able to not disrupt the factory floor, so we had a trans tunnel into it. Drive shaft tunnel carries a little ways back. A couple little modifications to do to some of the brace work over the rear end housing. Other than that, I mean, for all intensive purposes, it is a bolt-on. Chassis fits under the car phenomenally well, adds just an exuberant amount of rigidity to the car. These cars are inherently just flexible. Not a lot you can do with them. You can add a subframe connector to them, but it really doesn't tie that well into that existing front subframe mounting location, so it's almost kind of pointless. Getting a complete frame under one of these cars, it just changes the whole driving experience wildly. And the way this chassis integrates, it's super cool. We utilize that front 4-bolt kind of plate system, made a bolt-on mount, so now it accepts an energy suspension, standard kind of universal mounting kit, front to back. We pick up key areas of the car, anywhere we can find structure. So out back, we pick up the rear leaf spring pockets, make a bolt-on mount that locates it. Again, another energy suspension mount there. A couple holes here and there you got to drill to get the other mounts in, and you're off to the races. It essentially sets right down there. You've got great ground clearance. You've got plenty of room to package a 3-inch exhaust system. If you go up to the front of the car, when you remove that factory apron, everything's gone. You lose your hood hinges, you lose your core support, you lose your hood latch, you lose a lot of the grill mounting features. It turns the car into a massive project. So for those of you who see a relatively inexpensive subframe maybe out there and think you're gonna just swap that sucker in here, do not overlook the fact that you're gonna have several hundred hours of fabrication figuring out the rest of the pieces. Working off the vehicle scans from all the different year ranges on these Novas, we built an entire front core support and apron assembly that ties in the hinges. It's got a latching system in it, you name it. Hood bumpers are integrated into it. Your grill mounts are there. We've tabbed it, and we have brackets to bolt a CNR, big cross-flow radiator with a 19-inch PWM fan in it, provisions for the AC condenser on it, We've got provisions for heat exchangers for supercharged applications, and it's a total package. So I think it makes building a car fun, because a home builder, a guy and his son, you know, if they want to get one of these and go to work in the garage, you can really make some damn good progress pretty quickly. You know, within a weekend, I'd say you've got this car torn down, you've got it sitting on your new Roadster Shop Spec chassis, and you can have that entire front end mocked back up, fenders on, and now you've got a car. You know, you can start building the rest of the vehicle, and it's a manageable project. So overall, just a great package. You can option it out. We've got headers that fit it. We've got a gas tank with a variety of different fuel pump options. A vehicle like this, where we're making, you know, north of 700 horsepower, you know, we've got pump options that fit and work with that. 400 horsepower motors, just across the board, we've got it covered. We're currently working on some exhaust stuff to kind of ease the install of that, and have some bolt-in exhaust offerings for all the Spec chassis, so keep your eye out for that. 376 LS3 Dart Block 2.9 Whipple supercharger, built by Wegner Motorsports, that we're probably making somewhere in the ballpark of 750 horse on pump gas, and this particular motor is capable of, you probably break 1,000 horse on E85. The car runs on a Holley Dominator with a flex fuel sensor in it, so we can juice this thing up with E85 and turn the wick up. We've got the ability to toggle through different maps, and if the customer's feeling saucy, or if I'm feeling saucy before I give it to them, then that's exactly what we'll do. Bowler T56 with his carbon upgrade. Anytime we're going north of 600 horsepower, it's absolutely getting that upgrade. Tilting the twin disc clutch, that whole package together with the Wegner 376 2.9 Whipple, that's the stuff that makes this thing go. You know, can't forget the chassis, but all those things together, that's your recipe for just a fucking blast of a car to drive. So I will say a couple things that we did do on this, which is a little unorthodox, but to package that Whipple motor, for people who are watching this that maybe think they want to duplicate that package, we've got that motor stuffed so low that it is not our standard off-the-shelf motor mounts. We did lower the motor mounts to tighten up that gap from the Holley oil pan to the top of the rack as much as humanly possible. And even with that, it required modifying the inner structure on the bottom of this hood, and we can just barely snake that 2.9 Whipple underneath the hood of this thing. So if you're looking at this and you're like, I want that exact car, I'm buying this chassis, I've got a 63, just keep that in mind. It takes a little bit of work to wedge that in. To be honest with you, I don't know a lot of cars, you know, other than Tri-5s and C10s, that's even an option. It's a very small vehicle, right? But this car's deceiving, because when you get in it, it's got a lot, like if it were a boat, it'd have a lot of freeboard. It's a deep car. Like, I'm hammered down in this thing, so I think it's a little more forgiving under hood than what a Camaro might be. So it maybe worked in our favor to get that 2.9 Whipple under the hood. Just keep that in mind. And now I'm just gonna shut up for a minute, because I'm on my favorite road here, and I'm losing track of what I like doing. And that's driving the shit out of this car. This motor package with this 6-speed is fucking awesome. I mean, it's fun. We've done a number of big horse turbo cars that are frightening, and you've got to really respect them. And we built a number of cruisers lately. They're cool. You go out and cruise in it. But man, this is the sweet spot to where it's powerful, it's torquey, it will break the tires loose when you want to. That's fun. You cannot fake that. That cannot be fake. Oh. See, I needed that. That's what I needed to finish out this day, because the rest of the day sucked. And that reminds me why I still do this. This shit just never gets old, man. That is the sweet spot. I would say with this car probably weighs somewhere in the mid threes, 3,500 pounds, something like that. 750 horse, supercharged with that torque curve. Whatever it is, Wegner's got it figured out. The cam, the torque, all that, I don't think it gets any better than that. There's probably faster cars, but I don't know if there's anything that's more fun. But it gives you kind of a good idea. I don't know if you could pick it up through the video, and I'm not a professional driver. I'm just a dude that's built fast cars that are probably too fast for a long time and driven them all. But you get a good idea, I think. We're coming off a sharp left turn and just standing on this thing. 1, 2, 3, 4. Through a sweeper that's off camber, under power, and this car is just so damn planted. I mean, absolutely planted. You know, there's a little pucker factor there, but for the most part, I felt like I was totally in control of this thing. We'll go back and look and see if I had that face while I was driving it, but I felt cool. Totally under control. But that's what it's all about, is taking these muscle cars, putting a package together where they're predictable, they're reliable, and it puts the fun back into driving them. Because you put a big horsepower motor like this in this car with leaf springs, it's a death trap. I apologize if this one drags on, because this is a car I just enjoy driving, and I needed to get this out of my system today. So you guys are stuck with me for maybe longer than usual, as I just put this thing through the paces. And I'll fill you in with a few facts and interesting comments here and there, but otherwise this is selfishly me driving. We talked about the motor, we talked about the trans, talked a little bit about the chassis. A few more things on that chassis. You know, to put that power down, you got to have a tire under the back of the car. These are little cars, very difficult to package any substantial rubber under them. It was actually a bit of a surprise to us, because we did the 66, 67 year range first, which is, it's a lot more forgiving. The biggest hurdle with these cars is the front diameter. So you've got such a small wheel opening, and with this falling in the spec line, wanting to make it as bolt-on as possible, the last thing I wanted to do was tell the end-use customer that, hey, you've got to cut your front wheel opening, you've got to stretch it, you've got to trim it. We worked through that quite a bit. You'll see that the front of this chassis, it has an adjustable upper shock mount, which lets you pick the ride height up just a little bit. So with a 245/40/17 up front, small diameter, I want to say we're somewhere just north of 24 inches, which is about an inch shorter of diameter than what we typically run on a lot of these cars. You're able to turn that thing pretty much lock to lock, stays completely out of the fenders, out of the wheel openings. And the one thing that most people overlook, most chassis manufacturers, most suspension manufacturers, when you lower that diameter of the tire, you're lowering that scrub line from the front of the front of your independent front cross member, or whatever the lowest point is, that now gets closer to the ground, right? And it gets closer to the ground even more, because it's not that you're just lowering your coilovers, you're lowering that tire diameter lowers. What's up, dude? That guy likes it. Everybody likes it. And so what happens is, in compression, a lot of those cars will actually dive to the point where the front cross member will make contact with the ground. So to avoid that, we've got that alternate shock mount hole, which on these early gens, we run that coilover on the lower of the two holes, which is called out in our instruction manual, and makes it for this thing. So in the event you hit something nasty on the road and it bottoms out, you never have to worry about metal touching the ground. That cross member is free and clear. And I can attest to that, because I drove this car about 1,000 miles on a road tour recently down I-65 for quite some time, which is the equivalent to driving through the Baja, basically. The Midwest roads are absolutely brutal, and you try your best to dodge all the obstacles in the road, but you catch some of them. And I never hit anything that really upset the car. Things just like a battleship, and it makes for something you can just literally drive and not have to worry about. So 245 in the front. Out back, it's a 315/30/18. A little unorthodox that this car's an 18/17 stagger. A lot of times we're 19/18. I think this is about the only muscle car that we really recommend a 17. There's a few 18-inch sizes, but it's a little quirky to find the matching rubber front and rear, where you want to maximize the width of the back and get the optimal front diameter and match the manufacturer and the tread pattern. So off the top of my head, I'm not 100% sure what tire we ended up with. We'll zoom in on that. Ellie will clip that in because it's pretty instrumental when you're building one of these cars. I would use that as the absolute baseline for these cars. But putting the power down, you know, as we were ripping along back there, 4-link out back with a heavy duty 9-inch housing, our Fox SV coilovers. You can see the car's like, it puts the power down. I mean, 3rd gear from a wall. The car just goes, man. Bayer brakes on all 4 corners. I think we've got a 13 SS4 up front to fit inside that 17-inch wheel, and 13 out back as well. See, this car is just so tight. Going over some of these gnarly bumps that they shake the hell out of me every morning when I'm coming to work, the car just eats them up. You know, this is like, the shocks are still fairly soft on this car where we've got them set just to kind of walk that fine line between ride quality and performance. But this car, it's got like almost a Porsche-like feel to it, that the car's just tight. If you get into something that like you'd think would disrupt the car, it doesn't. I mean, the car moves, but it's tight, and it makes the car like very predictable to drive. When it, you know, it stepped out a little bit on me when we were under power back there, putting it through the paces, and you have the confidence to know that that car is just going to snap right back and kind of correct itself. You know, just keep your foot in it, and the car is going to find its course. It's autopilot, man. We'll move inside the car and talk about all of the cool features that we got going in here, because this falls in line with some of the most recent cars we've done, where it's Survivor Plus, I would say. It's not your standard recipe where we're taking just off-the-shelf gauges and putting them in place. It's not retrofit stuff, right? We looked at this car and we knew the customer's big into drag racing. The car just kind of has that vibe. It's like a grocery getter. It's white with black wheels. It looks tough. I wanted something inside that kind of matched that. I wanted to carry that badass kind of look into the interior. So the idea was make it look kind of racy. Kind of racy, but not like it's forced and a little bit refined. So we're fortunate to have Autometer right here not too far from us in town. And we worked with them on doing a one-off set of gauges where it gives us, I think they're 5-inch tack and speedo. Just super utilitarian. Like, it's a less is more approach, just white font, white needles, no extra bullshit on there, and a big old R/S in the middle. We restyle that Roadster Shop logo periodically to jive with the times. And then we machined the clusters that they go into. So the front, we didn't really essentially modify the sheet metal of the car at all. We scanned it and designed these totally bitchin' gauge clusters that the front one, the one right in front of me, that's housing the speedo and the tack, boom, bolts right in where the factory one was. Right there in the center, we were able to lay out just more gauges. I thought the car should have more gauges. You could use Dakota stuff, which is absolutely awesome, but it's going to package it all in one. So in order to get a whole mess of gauges, we just used single auxiliary gauges. We got water temp, oil, fuel, volts. Again, same philosophy over there. Custom one-off in its own custom gauge bezel. And then beneath it, it's just kind of all business, right? You've got a toggle ignition with a chrome push button. The car has Davis traction control that's tied into the Holley ECU, an electric e-brake, and then the audio system, all we use, it's Bluetooth through your phone, and you've got a volume knob right there. It's the only thing you really need. Everything else is controlled through your phone. Repainted the whole interior in this kind of brick red. Our man Steve did the interior here, and we took Recaro Specialist, took the headrest off, standard kind of maneuver there that we do on most all of these Survivor cars. Nice tight pleat to mimic the original kind of pattern. Some Crow 4-point belts, little 4-point roll bar here just for safety's sake, and then red everything in here, which I think looks bitchin'. Recovered the back seat, little package tray, all the audio's kind of tucked in nice and neat. And then I'd say the crown jewel of this whole thing is this center console plate. So the customer was pretty adamant about retaining some sort of the factory center console, but it just didn't make sense. So we took a little inspiration from it and made this more of a bezel. Does package 2 cup holders, so it's functional. Does have a USB port up front with a little stash spot for your phone, and it's kind of just like all business. I like this interior because there's no bullshit, right? It's manual windows. Everything just kind of works. It has our RS billet pedal assembly in it. It has the Lucara 3-spoke leather wrap wheel. Nothing extra, just what you need. And this is a great little road here with some cool switchbacks. Work quite well. Damn, that was fun. I hope that shows you what this car is capable of. It's capable of a hell of a lot more than I am, I'll tell you that. But for a guy who's as experienced as I am, you can jump in this car and just absolutely flog it. Damn, what a blast it is to drive. I don't think it gets any better than this, man. If I was going to duplicate a car for myself, I cannot think of anything on this that I would change. Like, it's as close to perfection as I think you can get. It's missing some paint, it's got some chips, it's got some dents, but who cares? When I'm inside of it, absolutely just romping on it, I'm having the time of my life. And man, I don't know what else we're missing. Don't know. Oh, as I'm looking at it, you know, we do a lot of these cars, and sometimes I just ramble and I forget. I'm talking about the 4-point cage in it. I forgot we put that low profile door bar in it. So it is a 6-point cage. I'm sure somebody will catch that and put it in the comments. So now we'll know if you watched the video until the end, because I caught it and I corrected myself. This was probably the best ending to a Friday that I can think of in a long time. This one's going home next week. This will be one that I will be sad to see go. But I would say anybody looking to upgrade their Nova, whether you want an autocross machine, whether you want a cruiser, whether you want to go fast, and this is like the ultimate everything chassis. We do a fast track for this platform. It's a heck of a lot of work to install. You know, it is a full perimeter frame. It kind of takes it to the next level as far as just radical ride height and performance, but I'd have a hard time, unless you're building something really to go for like a street machine of the year or chase some awards, I'd have a hard time telling a guy to buy a fast track over this spec package. There's several applications where the spec package, it just nails it, and it is as good as it gets, and this is one of them. So jump on our website. If you got a Nova, check this spec chassis out. Check out that motor package. I mean, as I'm running through all these things, there's some really good components in this car. I would honestly tell you if it sucked, but I'm shooting you straight. Thanks for watching. I appreciate everybody sitting here and listening to me ramble. Hope you enjoyed it. Hell of a fun car. Thanks, guys.